Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. I have a rather unexpected Kringle haul for you today. I don't think I've ordered from Kringle for months. I think maybe even close to a year, to be perfectly honest. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and if you watch my channel, you know what those reasons are. I'm kind of waiting for this company to find its footing. They're definitely at a crossroads, and for my money and for my preferences, this company has been kind of run into the ground over the last few years. And by few years, I mean like 2 or 3. Kind of fast. It hit the skids. And my own love for Kringle has to do with a certain conceptual brand, and I loved their country candle line, and I also loved the 100% paraffin. And so I think all 3 of those things have really taken a hit over the last 3 years. And I think that all 3 of them have really contributed to Kringle's downfall to some extent. From what I can tell, their sales are down. So it's not just me who kind of feels that way. At any rate, because they are pretty much an online only company, they do appear in certain retail locations, but not really in my area. Because they're an online only company, you do have to buy them. They are expensive, and you pay for shipping, and it's a lot when you're buying candles cold, and it's virtually impossible for you to return them if you don't like them. So for those reasons, I have kind of taken a pause on Kringle and have not bought from them for a while. However, they came out with a fall line, and I think their fall candles, I know that a lot of reviewers say that fall is bad for them. I kind of disagree with that. I love their fall conceptuals, and I think they've had some really winning fall conceptuals, even fairly recently as 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So I saw their lineup this year, and I thought to myself, these all look up in my wheelhouse, even if I get them and I don't really like them very much. So at the very least, I can buy daylights and figure out what this new fall collection is. There are only 6 in their fall collection. Usually they have 12, but because they canceled or discontinued their country candle line, they only had 6 from the Kringle line this year, and I will have comments about that later. I did go ahead and buy those, even as daylights, which is a little bit larger, double the size of a traditional tea light. Even the daylights are expensive. It cost me over $50, not for these 6. I did end up buying some other little things, which we'll get to too, but they were all daylights or wax melts, and it was over $50. And I think I used a coupon as well for $10 off. So not cheap, even buying the daylights, but I'm willing to spring for the daylights definitely before I spring for one of the candles. At any rate, I'm not gonna allow this preamble to go on too long because I actually think this video will be kind of lengthy. I'm gonna go through all 6 of the new fall fragrances, and then I will pause and I will talk about my thoughts about the fall collection and just some thoughts about where they are right now as a company, and what I liked about these offerings, what I didn't like, etc. And then after that, I will wrap up with these other random things. I just went ahead, since I was making, a haul, I decided to buy some other daylights of some candles that I missed this year because I was not buying from Kringle. So I will talk about those at the end, but I know some of you don't love the chit chat and would just like to know about the fragrances themselves. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and just talk about the 6 fragrances that they've got here for their fall lineup. With the disclaimer being, first of all, that I have not burned these yet, and they will probably transform once they're burned, even as daylights. The second disclaimer being that Kringle, this is not the end of Kringle's fall lineup. They do release quite a lot of reserve candles. I suspect they're going to be releasing some more fall reserve candles. They already have a few out. So we're gonna see some more fall from them. This is not like the final word, and obviously they've got their vaunted Halloween launch that is about to come, I think even like in a week or so. And I will definitely be buying some of those Halloween candles. Yes, so, but these are the 6 classic fall collection that they're putting forward, and should be around for some time. They're not obviously limited edition. And if you're not familiar with Kringle, like Yankee and like other companies, they will release, and like Bath & Body Works, they release a fall lineup, several of which are new. 6 of these are new here for Kringle. And then once they sell out, and it often takes at least a season, that are part of a year for them to sell out, they will identify usually 1, 2, whatever it is, to kind of hang around in their core collection for indefinitely for some amount of time. And that's true for Bath & Body Works, is true for Yankee as well. There are some that it just don't land and we probably won't see them again. So that's the deal with the new fall candles. All right, I printed out the notes, the fragrance notes on all of these. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the notes, to be perfectly honest. And partly it's because I want to try to describe the fragrance, what I'm smelling, especially because these are conceptuals. Conceptuals are hard to describe, and the notes themselves, conceptuals are often more than the sum of their parts. And so you can't just kind of zone in on the notes themselves. You have to try to kind of describe the vibe, kind of describe how that fragrance comes off to you. So I'm gonna try to do that as much as possible. So these notes, I've really only, I've been watching videos from various different reviewers, but honestly, I've allowed the notes to kind of go in one ear and out the other. And, you know, so in many ways, I'm kind of going to be scrutinizing them for the first time here with you. All right, so this is going to be in reverse alphabetical order because I printed them out in that, in that order. So I'm going to go with that. The very top one that I have here is Whiskey and Embers. So Whiskey and Embers looks like this. It's going to be this beautiful, very deep kind of cranberry red. No, wait, I'm sorry. That's apple rum cake. Apologize. It is a red color, but it's a little bit brighter. It's more of an orangey, like a clay red maybe. I don't know what kind of red that would be called. Whiskey and Embers, and as you can see, it's got like a little whiskey tumbler there, a fireplace, a book. It's very like kind of masculine leaning, little bit old-fashioned library, you know, den kind of feeling, which is great for Whiskey and Embers, the concept. So the blurb on this is, Whiskey and Embers captures the quiet crackle of a fire on a crisp autumn night, where smooth whiskey and warm tonka drift through the air. Smoldering wood smoke and spice unfold at the heart, evoking flannel, flame, and falling leaves. Hey, I love that alliteration. Sometimes their blurbs are really rough. This is going well. Grounded in amber and rich woods, it leaves behind the scent of smoke-kissed memories. For Kringle, that is really a step up from a lot of their blurbs, so that's nice. All right, so Whiskey and Embers. Yeah, I actually kind of like it. For me, it's not a love. It is boozy. It's really boozy, but it is balanced. It is that very familiar, it's not quite deep or ambered enough to be like a bourbon, but it is a whiskey, which if you don't know, bourbon is whiskey, but it's made with corn. It's higher up in the range. I mean, I would say that this is definitely a mid-range like whiskey note, if not kind of a little bit high range. So it's kind of got that really aggressive young alcohol pop to it, if you know what I mean. It is grounded with kind of an amber and almost a honeyed amber note on the bottom. And you would think that would make it go a little bit more bourbon-like, but it really does feel separate. Like there is the whiskey note and then there is the amber honey note down below it, rather than it being a honeyed or ambered whiskey. And I feel like there might be a little bit of a note that smells like it could be either a leather note or a vetiver note. Maybe even a light tobacco note, but it's, again, it's indistinguishable from either a vetiver or a leather. And you know how I've talked about that before. There is a certain fragrance note that could be either leather or vetiver, or sometimes even a patchouli. Like they just kind of are in that zone of indistinction where it's something like that without it being discernibly leather as opposed to vetiver, etc. And obviously those are 3 different notes, but especially when they're a back note, it could be one or, you know, any of them. Again, very mid-range, very mid-range. This is not a bassy candle at all. It does smell masculine, what with the whiskey element and with also the vetiver / leather component, but it's not heavy, and partly staying in that mid-range definitely helps. Just for me, I feel like I've smelled a version of this candle from a lot of different places. It is nicely done and it's fairly balanced. Just know that the whiskey element is the biggest element here. And if you're not a boozy fan, you're not gonna like this candle. This immediately reminded me of Sweet Whiskey from Bath & Body Works. And I actually brought one. Remember this sweet packaging? Some people didn't like it, but they were crazy. Do you remember that packaging from last year? Oh, it was so classy. It was so cool. So this is Sweet Whiskey, which is supposed to be golden amber, vanilla infused whiskey, and sweet red berries, weirdly. Oh my gosh, this is the first moment I actually smell those red berries. And it's because I just smelled that candle, which is very similar in its whiskey note. And therefore, because those are the common denominator, I'm smelling all the things that are different from them. Because usually when I smell Sweet Whiskey in the store from Bath & Body Works, I'm just like, whoa, that's a lot of alcohol, pass. I just can't smell anything other than that Sweet Whiskey note. But now smelling it in conjunction with another candle, which is very similar, I'm smelling the nuances between them, which is really pretty. And actually, Bath & Body Works is correct. There is kind of a red berryness underneath this, which is very nice and is actually kind of grounding. And yeah, it does have that kind of, could be a leather, could be a vetiver, could be something like that underneath it, you know, back note. So I would say that the difference between this candle and the Whiskey and Embers from Kringle is that red berry note, which frankly, I've never really observed, and makes this one a great deal more balanced than I initially thought that it was as well. Very similar candles. There's not as much to this Whiskey and Embers from Kringle as there is to the Bath & Body Works Sweet Whiskey. And I've never thought there was much to Sweet Whiskey, to be perfectly honest. But I did buy it because it is a little bit in my wheelhouse. I do like boozy fragrances for fall. I do lean a little bit more masculine in terms of my tastes. And there was just enough of something in there, and you know, it goes on a big sale and you're just like, oh, what the heck, you know, take that home. So at some point, maybe this year, I will burn up Sweet Whiskey, especially since I now have this Whiskey and Embers. For me personally, this is far less complex than even Bath & Body Works' Sweet Whiskey. For me personally, this is probably a fragrance that you don't need. If you love this genre, yeah, you'd be happy with it, but can you get it a lot of other places and maybe better than this? Possibly. Cheaper than this? Absolutely. So it's a fine fragrance from Kringle, but it's not radically different than many of their candles or candles that you can get at this point, because, you know, candle and home fragrance preferences have changed. You can get this a lot of places, if you know what I mean. I didn't read the notes. The top notes are whiskey and tonka. The mid notes are allegedly wood, smoke, and spice. And the base is amber and wood. To be honest, yeah, I could see how that like vetiver-ish note could also be like a little bit on the, it could be a wood with a musk as well. But again, it's not your dominant note here by any stretch. I'm not getting a whole lot of spice here, any more than the kind of spice that you would get from a vetiver, frankly. And I'm not really getting any smoke. That might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. The smoke might have added a different dimension to the candle, but it also could have gone in an even more cliche direction. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that particularly loved the bourbon bonfire from last year or the year before that. And I feel like it would just kind of go in that direction. So it's okay. It's just okay. Again, it's not bad in terms of the fragrance. It's just kind of, at this point, ho-hum. There weren't enough dimensions to it. And it could just be the soy too, that's just very keeping it in that mid-range and muting all the other nuances that might have made this a better candle. You know that I'm a paraffin girl. Anything poured in paraffin is probably gonna be a better fragrance payoff. And you're just gonna be able to sense nuances that you can't with soy. So it could be a soy problem as well. So there you go. That is the first one, which is Whiskey and Embers. Not a miss, but not exactly a hit either. All right, let's move to Velvet Fig. Velvet Fig, as you can imagine, has this lovely deep purple fig color. Looks like this. Kringle has had a few fig fragrances over the years, for sure. Guys, this one I like. This one I really like. It is different than their other fig fragrances before. And here's the thing with this one. I smelled it for a real long time and I just thought fig. But then one of these times I picked it up and I'm like, what if I didn't know that this was a fig fragrance? And I smelled it, and immediately what stood out to me was the deep, dark musk in it, and honey, and again, a vetiver slash tobacco slash almost patchouli-like back note, which actually almost smelled like one of their Halloween candles. Like, I think they could definitely put this in one of their Halloween candles and pass it off as a Halloween. And I think we would probably be like, oh, it's fruity and jammy, and probably me or somebody would be like kind of figgy, you know? So I think we could get to fig, but I don't know that we would automatically notice the fig over those other elements. So this is my way of saying that I think this is a very nice fall conceptual. And for those of you that like the Halloween candles, I think you're gonna really like this. If this was put in a Halloween vessel with a Halloween concept, I think you would really like it. And I think you would absolutely say that it fit. Yeah, it's really nice. It almost smells a little bit boozy. There is kind of a wine-like element to it as well, but it's muted. It's very muted. It's, again, a back note rather than this is a boozy candle. It's a gorgeous conceptual. It really is, and it's a gorgeous conceptual for fall. So the blurb on Velvet Fig is, Velvet Fig wraps you in the warmth of golden leaves and fading twilight. Aha, here we go. Where sweet cognac swirls into the air like a quiet toast to the season. Lush, ripe fig melts into a creamy heart, rich and indulgent. That's kind of weird. Creamy heart of what? It's a little bit of Kringle showing there. Anchored by amber, tonka, and deep woods, it lingers like the soft embrace of a well-worn cashmere sweater. Okay, that's some Kringle showing there too. Why? There's nothing in this that's cashmere. No, there's no linen note. There's no cashmere note. There's not even enough of like an amber sandalwood note that you could get away with that kind of invocation. Oh my God, that's just Kringle. Like, too many words, too many ideas, getting carried away in a kind of an amateur way. Just completely ignore the well-worn cashmere sweater. That's out. That is not a thing here. Okay, next. Notes are, and once again, our Kringle is showing here, sweet. That's just the note. Sweet, that adjective. cognac, and they put a comma between it. Again, just take the comma out. Just put sweet cognac. That looks better. Not sweet, comma, cognac. Okay, not gonna belabor that. But guess what? The mid notes are creamy, comma, ripe. Full stop. Oh, why? Okay. Oh no, I apologize. I take that back. It's the way that it's printed. I apologize. It is creamy, comma, ripe fig. The fig was on the next line and it was broken up and I just didn't see it. I apologize. I owe Kringle an apology. Although they did say creamy with a comma. So creamy, who knows what. Just creamy. Creamy anything. Creamy and ripe fig. Base notes are amber, tonka, and woody. Okay. And again, you might have a wood with a musk there, but the way that they're going together does smell a little like vetiver leather-like. Yeah? I love it. I do. It might be one fragrance note shy of being really spectacular, and I don't know what that fragrance note is, but it's quite good. It's quite good. And it's right up in my wheelhouse. I love it. Yeah, and now I'm more confident saying that it does have like that wine-like cognac quality to it. And it's beautiful. It's not aggressive. It's not acerbic. It's not like the sweet whiskey is, which is very unabashedly like young alcohol in your face. This is not that way. It's beautifully blended in with the fig, with the musk, with the wood. Oh, it's really nice. And yes, this is definitely a low range candle, like, you know, your low mid to base. Yes, again, I'm probably not picking up as much clarity, especially in the base notes because of it being 100% soy, but I'll take it. And I'm very happy with it. I love a fig. I love a fall fig. I love a wood. I love a musk. It's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I think I was watching Kevin because Kevin, I think, talked about this candle, and I love Kevin in and out. But I think he mentioned something about how like it's fig, so why shouldn't it be in spring? And I completely disagree with that, actually. I think fig is a very versatile fruit note. You can absolutely do it in the fall, but I mean in the spring. But a spring fig or even a summer fig is a completely different vibe than a fall fig. And this to me is very much a fall fig. It's rather than it being fresh and light, and like fresh and light and young figs actually almost smell like nothing, you know? They are that just kind of vaguely sweet, vaguely like a very mild honey or something like that, you know? Whereas like a much more mature and a fall fig is like deep, dark, jammy, like much more pronounced. Yeah, just kind of oozing, which is probably not the best visual there. But yeah, and then when you combine it with a deep wood and a musk and a cognac, okay, we're definitely not talking light, bright, you know, fresh botanical spring here. I don't think anybody would mistake this for a spring candle. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so that is Velvet Fig. Next one, Vancouver Cabin. It's our lone green. We don't even have a blue, so this stands in for that color palette right here. Look how beautiful that is. Yes. Oh my gosh, the mountain, the woods, the little cabin, the lake, the beautiful dark, deep hunter green. It's a yes. By the way, these are all Kringle 100% soys. Now they've done away from the country line. They've done away with their lovely colored waxes. So unfortunately, you're not gonna get a nice green colored wax. It will just be the white with a label that is green, but the label doesn't even wrap around. So in my opinion, I think that's not a good move. and I am very fond of colored waxes. So unfortunately, if this was in the country line, it would have a beautiful green wax. As it is, it's just gonna be a white wax. But anyway, Vancouver Cabin, the blurb on this one is tucked away in the misty woods. Vancouver Cabin captures the essence of a crisp autumn escape, where cedar and bergamot drift through the air like the first breath of dawn. Yikes. As the fire crackles, warm amber, earthy moss, and balsamic woods wrap you in the quiet, smoky embrace of the season. All right, that line was great. Okay, so our notes here are bergamot, cedar. Mid notes are balsamic. Man, I wish they would just stop doing adjectives, just random adjectives. Balsamic what? Or just put like, I don't know. They need to come up with a noun there. The noun after it though is patchouli, and the base note is moss and amber. So the bergamot is gonna give me pause, and it should give you pause as well, because it just looks kind of like this is gonna be a men's cologne. And then you've got like some usual men's cologne elements there. The cedar, the balsamic, the patchouli, the moss, the amber. Yikes. I was kind of cringing a little bit. And I have to be honest, I love this fragrance, and it's one of my favorites in the 6. And I'm kind of surprised because I've watched some reviews, like some initial like reports on it, and everybody doesn't like this, and I love it. The one thing I will say about it is that it seems so weak. I mean, of all 6 of these, like I can barely smell this one. So disclaimer there, like maybe I'm not even smelling it correctly because it's kind of hard to smell. But I'm grateful for that. I mean, when you get one of those, I haven't even smelled Yankee Candle's fall collection. I'm already bracing myself. Those Yankee Candles are just gonna be one men's cologne after another, and they're all thick and heavy and cliched. And if this is a men's cologne, it is not in that category, okay? It's really not. Hard for me to smell this, and unfortunately, or fortunately, however you see it, it's not a basey candle. It's not heavy. It's very much in the mid-range, and very much like sweet whiskey, it actually presses up into the upper range and seems to be completely missing the base notes, which is odd given that you've got cedar, balsamic, patchouli, and moss. I mean, those should anchor your fragrance, right? They should drag everything down. And what I'm smelling here is way up in the range, like way up. And maybe that's making it, even if it is a men's cologne, not a traditional men's cologne. You know what I mean? They had that candle Coral last year. And Coral was all the elements of a men's cologne, but everything was shifted way up into the range, like super high, and it just gave it a completely different vibe. Yeah, there's amber in here. I think there's bergamot, but it's not a sparkling bergamot. And actually, I think the bergamot here is fairly light. Again, that's helping it out a great deal. It's a very high honey amber, like way up in here. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that they don't like just straight up say that it's honey in distinction to amber, even if there's amber in here, which I think there is. I think to me, it smells like honey and amber, like way up here. And some very high musk. Man, because you can hardly smell it. And then something which is slightly boozy, frankly. Again, you've got that cognac or sherry note, but again, super high, very pleasant. It blends perfectly into that honey and amber. And then possibly a botanical element. But by botanical element, it could be anything from a cypress to a juniper to, I don't think it's funky enough for a vetiver. It's something. They say moss here. I'm not getting a strong wood note. Oh, they say patchouli too. But this is like a very high refined patchouli. I just really like it. I really do. No, there's not any, it says as the fire crackles. Well, there's nothing smoky in this. I really don't know what to make of this fragrance, but I love it. I don't know what else to say. So just, and please take it with a grain of salt because almost nobody has liked this fragrance and everybody who I've seen has just been like, it's a men's cologne, next. Like even if it is a men's cologne, it's definitely not a usual men's cologne. And it has many more elements to it. And I think they have been judicious with the bergamot so as not to make it a very cliched men's fragrance. I mean, all bets off when I burn it though, honestly. Watch me burn it and be like, guys, it's a cliched men's cologne. You just have no idea. But smelling it on cold, like I said, I think it's one of the more intriguing ones from this collection and I love it. I love it. I almost love it more than the Velvet Fig because I just think it's more unusual. I love it. I don't know if it invokes for me a cabin or woods or Vancouver, but it's definitely a fall fragrance. And it definitely leans a touch masculine. Again, with kind of that boozy element. This slight vague outdoor green note. And the amber. But it's real nice. And I don't think it goes overly masculine. So, I don't know. Like I said, please take it with a grain of salt. I'm the only one who's liked it at this point. So, and maybe I'm not getting a good handle on it because it's honestly very hard to smell. All right, the next one is Rosewood and Vetiver. And it's kind of in this very dusty amber note, amber color, actually. So is the label itself. Maybe they should have had a few more textures or a few more colors there, but how gorgeous is that? With the yellow leaves and with that beautiful acoustic guitar. Oh, it takes you to a space. It takes you almost to like the 60s too. I really love it. I think it's beautiful. Rosewood and Vetiver. So the blurb on this one is crisp autumn air meets the warmth of smoldering amber in Rosewood and Vetiver, where dusky woods and golden florals, interestingly, intertwine like fading sunlight through crimson leaves. Okay. A touch of sweet fruit softens into rich tobacco leaf, wrapping the season in a scent both rugged and refined. Again, another great alliteration and perfect for the season. And yeah, that's really great. It's a nice touch. There's a lot going on here in this blurb, right? But we have a very Kringle list of notes. Top notes, amber and wood, indiscriminate. Mid, floral and fruit, again, very indiscriminate. Base, amber again, and tobacco leaf. So that's to me, those notes just sound like those were holders for when we actually got our shit together and wrote a professional set of fragrance notes. But this is by no means intended to be like the final consumer-facing list of fragrance notes. So I can't really tell anything from that, to be honest. Oh, wow. I should have brought along my cherry tree candle, actually, because cherry tree has the amber and the wood too, that smells like honey and apricots. And again, we're in exactly the same genre. They're saying it's amber and wood, but again, you're getting a very strong wine-like, boozy, cognac, sherry kind of note. And as I said with cherry tree, it may just be the way that a certain kind of amber smells up against a certain kind of wood, but that is what you are smelling. You are not smelling amber and wood. You are smelling a deep, rich, honeyed, syrupy, like fruity sherry or cognac or what's the other fruit one? Port, something like that. One of those like dessert aperitifs. This one smells kind of figgy too, to be honest. Yeah, these are actually similar candles, except that the Velvet Fig is basier, and this one has a ton of honey, and it's way up higher in the range. And at first, I wasn't smelling the tobacco leaf note at all, but now I can smell it. And it's right kind of in that like lower mid-range. And it's just providing a very delicate and nice back note of something that is, you know, that tobacco note. It's just kind of a little bit like musty and brittle and I don't know, kind of like sour. You know how the tobacco is? And it's actually contrasting very nicely with the uber sweetness of the honey. I also brought this scarecrow candle along because this one has tobacco in it. Oh, wow. Okay, not similar. Because this one doesn't have enough honey amber on top. It's like a lot lower. And it's also got a spicy element to it, like a real spice element. Like a clove, maybe a ginger. That's a lot. And it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but not this. This is actually much more similar to cherry tree. Man, that's a very bright honey note. Again, I don't know why some of these candles don't just say honey. I just find it very difficult to believe that there's no honey in this candle, you know? And I'm pretty sure it is honey because like, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Remember their Halloween line where they had honey in every single candle and they put it in there. They put it in as like a mid note in almost all of their candles. So I'm pretty sure this is honey. Like for instance, Nevermore, which is a very popular Halloween candle, is just straight up honey. And it's supposed to have chai in it too. I mean, the chai in it is extremely subtle and is just a back note, but it's a through and through honey candle. This is many of these candles are in that genre of those like honey Halloween candles. They just don't have as many of the Halloween aspects to them, but it's kind of surprising to me that none of these seem to list honey as a scent note because it's just very obvious that many of them, especially this one, is just, I would say it's primarily a honey candle with some other elements. And the other elements are a boozy cognac note, and it's either a cognac or a port or a sherry in that it is an alcohol that is made of fermented fruit of some kind. So it does have that like fruity element to it. And it could be a stone fruit. It could be, I wouldn't say a cherry, but I would say maybe even a pear or maybe an apricot, like a stone fruit, a plum that has been fermented. But your dominant note here is honey with also just a very light back note of tobacco leaf. Again, this is a very high range candle. It's at least high in the mid range, if not up into the high range here because of that extremely high dominant honey note. In terms of the floral, sometimes I don't smell it, but other times I do. And I think it's a rose note, actually. It is a true rose note, and I think that's why they're calling it rosewood. It is like a red rose. But again, as with the tobacco leaf, it's in the background, and it's just kind of rounding out the conceptual in a very beautiful way. Fairly balanced with the exception of that honey note. Sweet whiskey is the same way. Fairly balanced with the exception of that like very, very obvious whiskey note on top. Yeah. This one has a few more nuances because I think that honey is a bit more nuanced than just straight up alcohol whiskey. And then with the tobacco note, with the little bit of red rose, with the cognac, the tobacco, yeah, it's a little bit more, I like it better than the sweet whiskey. I think it's a little bit more interesting. So yeah, I like it. Again, it's just, it just smells to me like 100% soy candle, in that you're just not getting the base notes that you should be getting, in my opinion, and probably would be getting. If this was a paraffin candle, you honestly would probably be getting more tobacco, you'd be getting more musk, you'd be hitting harder with the wood, and it might be adding completely different dimensions to your fragrance. And I think that it would compete a little bit better with that high sweet honey note. It's a very sweet candle, very sweet because of the honey note. Honestly, everything is better in paraffin. And I know that there's a lot of you who don't love paraffin for some very legitimate reasons, but everything smells better in paraffin. It's just the way that it is. Oh, I brought this candle too because this is an example, by the way, of that year, or at least one of the years where they had honey and everything. This is one of my favorite candles from them, Hallowed Ground. This one is saffron, smoky cedarwood accord, honey, sage, sandalwood, musk, vanilla, patchouli, tonka, very much in this genre. Yeah, very similar. This one is a lot bolder, I think, than Rosewood and Vetiver. And while it has honey in it, it has a lot of other things that are competing better with it. And this is still 100% soy, but there's just a few more elements in here, I think, that are really making it more powerful and giving it a lot more depth and resonance than Rosewood and Vetiver. So while I like Rosewood and Vetiver, I do think this Hallowed Ground is 10 times better. For me, Hallowed Ground was a sleeper scent. Hardly anybody got into it, and I just think it's one of the best candles that Kringle has done for a long time. Very similar to, or at least a sister scent to Sanctuary from Kringle, which was like one of their few last 100% paraffin fragrances. Oh wow, that's amazing. It's amazing, amazing fall conceptual. Man, that is good. But many of you loved the Sanctuary candle. Frankly, I kind of suspect we're not going to see it in soy because I suspect it does not translate into soy very well. And it's just a shame because that was lightning in a bottle, and almost everyone liked that candle. And if they could bring it back in soy, I bet they would. But they really need to bring back Hallowed Ground, because this was formulated for 100% soy, and it is fantastic. Oh man, it's fantastic. And they don't need to bring it back in a Halloween line. I mean, they could just bring it back as a returning favorite for fall. That is fantastic. So yeah, Rosewood and Vetiver, definitely in this genre. But as with Nevermore, it's dominated by a very syrupy honey note on top. So, and it doesn't seem like the other notes are sounding quite the way that they should. So I like it. Again, it's a like, but I don't know that it will be a love. I definitely think it's more interesting than the whiskey candle. All right, let's go to Apple Rum Cake. Apple Rum Cake. I showed you this before. There you go. Apple rum. So now that I'm looking at it, you do have a little tiny apple all the way over here. But do you see that? Do you see those raisins? Yeah. And that to me looks like a raisin kind of bread. And there's no coincidence here. This is not really an apple fragrance. When I first smelled this, I was like, whoa, raisin and rum coming through. Like, you know that Haagen-Dazs ice cream raisin rum? Wow, that is a raisin rum candle if there ever was one. In fact, there isn't a whole lot of other elements to this candle. I would say that it's brown sugar, raisins, rum, and frankly, some weird Michael's craft store spices. That makes me pause. I think it cheapens the candle a little bit. It's a cinnamon, but it is something else that's kind of not truly gourmand, which makes me feel bad for the gourmand folks, because I think this is really the only gourmand candle of the 6, and I don't even know if it's a great gourmand. Like, as in, I would almost buy this candle, and you all know I hate gourmands. So I don't think this is a really good gourmand, or a through and through gourmand. The dominant notes are the rum and the raisin. There's no question. So if you like rum and raisin, you're, number one, definitely gonna like this candle. And secondly, it's as close as you're gonna get to a gourmand rum raisin candle. I just think that there are, again, back notes here that are not entirely gourmand. And I'm not getting hardly any apple at all. If I smelled this, I would say, I would not identify an apple note. I would not. So in that sense, it's not aptly advertised. And if you're an apple fan and you're hoping for an apple cake, like, no, you're not gonna like this. This is not an apple cake. If you don't like booze, you're also not gonna like this candle. However, if you like rum and raisin, then you will like it. All right, so let's see what they say about it. I'm not getting a bakery note. They say warm from the oven and drenched in spiced rum. Okay, so that's where the spices are coming from. Like I said, definitely a cinnamon, maybe a clove. But these are like, at best, mulling spices, not baked spices. At best. And I think they smell a little craft store-ish rather than, again, baking or gourmand. Apple rum cake fills the air with the cozy embrace of baked apples. Incorrect. Golden pastry, also incorrect. I mean, it's definitely, what are they talking about with pastry? Like, it's not a pastry at all. At the very most they could expect, it would be like a very deep, thick, like cake bread, you know, like one of those quick breads, or a very thick, dense, almost spice cake kind of element. I don't know what they're talking about with pastry. There's no pastry here, golden or otherwise. Caramelized dates. Well, yes, there is that. Dates or raisins, yes. And the caramelized is what I'm smelling with the, like, it's a pretty pronounced brown sugar note. A dusting of cinnamon and nutmeg. Maybe nutmeg. I think it's more like clove. Lingers like the essence of autumn itself. Rich, nostalgic, and irresistibly inviting. Your top notes are fruit, indiscriminate, and spiced rum. Your mid notes are dates, apple, and pastry. Just completely cross out apple and pastry. Base notes are cinnamon and nutmeg. No, your base notes are raisins. Dates and raisins, that's the base element here. And it's a very deep, dark raisin. Like, we're not talking golden raisins here. Dates is about right. And dates are very caramelized as well. I think there's some brown sugar in here as well. Brown sugar. So you've got that like very deep molassesy brown sugar note with the dark raisins and with a very low spice blend of like cinnamon and clove maybe. And then on top, you have kind of the lightness of the rum note. The whole thing is lower mid-range to almost a little bit bassy. Yeah, I don't really know what they're doing with that. I like it, and I would almost buy it. Because it does, again, it's got this like spicy, boozy kind of note to it, which I love for the fall. It goes perfectly with the depth of the raisins and the dates and the brown sugar and the molasses, and a little bit of cinnamon. It's cozy, but I wouldn't say it's a through and through gourmand. And it has gourmand elements to it, yes, but it kind of comes across more as a conceptual than it does a through and through gourmand. Yeah, I would have just called it raisin and rum. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna like it out there. If you are a fairly standard mainline kind of basic gourmand person, I don't think you're gonna like it. And please don't come to it thinking it's an apple cake of any kind. Again, very boozy, very boozy. All right, last but not least, Amberwood Moss, which looks like this. I already hated the concept. I'm like, why? Do we need more amber? We've got a lot of amber in all of these candles. And like, I feel like Kringle has like 17 iterations of amber and fall. Like, you know, I think they even have an Amberwood something else. Well, this is apparently supposed to be Amberwood Moss. I was kind of worried about a men's cologne here. So the blurb says, as autumn deepens, Amberwood Moss captures the essence of a crisp forest trail where golden leaves crunch beneath your feet and the air is rich with green fougere and resinous fir. Wisps of warm amber and earthy moss linger like the last rays of sunlight through the trees, a perfect balance of freshness and fall's quiet embrace. It's fine, it's a little generic. Your top notes are green, comma, fougere. Fougere is a kind of green oil where it's extracted, the oil extracted from plants. And I can't quite remember what, I want to say fougere is a little bit coniferous smelling. I could be wrong about that. Mid notes, stemmy greens, so stems and vines maybe. Lavandin, which is a spikier and more austere version of lavender. And fir, as in a fir balsam. Base is wood amber moss. All right, so this is just dominated by balsam, like a balsam fir. I've heard people saying this is like, smells like Christmas. Definitely, if your only association for fir balsam is Christmas, it will smell like that for you. And yeah. There is something bright and almost weirdly effervescent or carbonated / medicinal about whatever is behind this balsam. It's kind of like, it's up in the higher range and it's almost acidic like a lemon. But then it also has this like medicinal note to it. It smells kind of like, I was about to say tastes like a lemon cough drop. Kind of lemon cough droppy. And it's ambered, so it's got, this one does not have like a very pronounced honey note in it. It's a true amber, but it's got that like warm, resinous kind of vibe to it. So that with the lemon, with the medicinal, again, kind of a little cough droppy. A cough drop balsam fir. For McHugh. Yeah, there might be some like damp, earthy elements here, a la the moss, but it's no more, it's not a whole lot more earthy than you would expect from a tree. This is again very mid-range to top range, and it's partly that like effervescent thing. It's herbal. That's what I mean by the medicinal. It's like an herbal medicinal. I don't know that it's particularly pleasant. The most pleasant aspect of this is the familiarity of the fir balsam. The other stuff that's in it is not very pleasant. I guess it could go past as interesting, but it's dominated by the fir balsam note, and I kind of suspect once it's burned, that's all you're gonna smell, but we'll see. Yeah, this is not for me, and I'm kind of an outdoorsy kind of girl, but I don't know about that. That just seems, it also seems like the most unfinished of these candles. Like, I'm not quite sure what direction they were going here, but they are not quite done with this. It's like the beginning of a candle, but what else are we gonna do with this, you know? So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Amberwood Moss. You could do worse, and it's decent. It's just not, it's not bad. It's just not good. Okay, so there you go. That's the 6. And we have gone on very, very long. So, let me just say that I'm gonna save these for another little video, okay? I'll put these over here. We're not gonna go to that. But let me just say a few things about these 6. So first of all, there were a lot of complaints from the gourmand folks, and I think justifiably, because there are basically no gourmands in the 6. And you do want a healthy dose of gourmands for your fall collection. Even if they're just completely phoned in. Here's another pumpkin spice candle. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. I mean, Kringle has done that. Even in its more successful fall collections a few years back, they would just be like, here's sugar pumpkins. And like sugar pumpkins was just basically a really nice pumpkin spice candle. But we were like, yay! It's not really bringing to the table anything that's like completely novel, but you kind of needed it as a counterpoint to the other really unusual conceptuals that were in the collection. I think one of them was Sanctuary, you know? But then you had like a blueberry pancakes with maple syrup and sugar pumpkins, and everybody was happy, you know? Because you had a really intriguing few conceptuals, and then you had the very familiar ones, you know? And even if the very familiar ones don't end up being in your collection forever, it rounds out your spate of offerings for the year in a very beautiful way. And you don't have to be like swinging for the fences with those gourmands. Just give something, you know, that's just another pumpkin spice, you know, or whatever else it is, just another apple candle, but everybody will just love it. They will just love it, you know, and maybe they won't burn it the year after that, but they need it for this year. Yeah. I'm not even a gourmand person, but I really think that's definitely missing here. And I think they need that. From what I can tell, and this is just a conjecture, the fact that they only gave us 6 here, whereas usually they do the 6 Kringle candles, and then they do the 6 country candles. So it's usually 12. And the fact that they're only giving us 6, and they haven't like adjusted it and at least given us 8 or something like that, to me, it looks like when they discontinued their country candle line, they just canceled that aspect of the fall release without massaging anything, without throwing a couple of those scents over into Kringle. They just like canceled them. So I suspect that there are fully 6 other scents that they had prepared for the country candle rotation, knowing full well that they were going to cancel country candle at some point. But I suspect they at least had 6 planned for country candle, if not, frankly, ready to go to production, and then just canceled them once country candle was gone, and didn't bother adjusting the 6 that they had planned for Kringle. Yeah. And since lately they had been shunting a lot of their gourmands into the country candle lineup, I suspect that those 6 from Country Candle included a lot of gourmands. And when they canceled it, they just kind of canceled all their gourmands. That is probably a mistake. But, you know, they've got a lot of balls in the air, and that's just the way they played it. For simplicity's sake, they just canceled those fragrances. Maybe they were able to convert a couple of them into the Halloween line, or plan them for next year for Kringle or something like that. Like I'm sure that we'll see them in some way, shape, or form, but they just didn't come out this year in the fall lineup. And it made for a very skewed fall lineup, which is very conceptual heavy. And I'm a conceptual girl, I love them, but it's a little imbalanced in that respect. And especially for a fall lineup, you want to have very cozy and familiar fragrances along with more challenging and creative ones. And in this case, I don't think that there were enough cozy, familiar mainline ones. And again, if you don't like boozy fragrances, you are really out of luck with this collection. There are a couple that don't have booze, like Amberwood Moss with the balsam. I don't think that has booze in it. But literally all the rest of them, I think, have a boozy element to it. Even the ones that don't list booze, like, smell kind of boozy to me. Yeah? So it's not gonna, this collection is just not gonna be for everyone, and is not a good collection to be able to capture various different demographics. And that's probably a little bit of a mistake. There are also, because they're all conceptuals, well, I mean, that shouldn't bother. You should be able to come up with, especially Kringle, come up with 6 really different conceptuals. A lot of these are treading the same ground. They don't smell, don't get me wrong, they are fairly diverse, and none of them smell like dupes of each other. They're not that similar, but they are using a lot of the same fragrance notes for many of these, which make them kind of, it's almost like they had a certain base of a candle, and then they just added fig here, and they added like tobacco here, and they added whiskey here. Like they just kind of, you know, like one of those ice cream shops where they just mix the add-ins into them. That's kind of what some of these smell like. The only ones that smell wholly other than the others are the Amberwood Moss Balsam one, and maybe the Vancouver Cabin. Vancouver Cabin does smell separate from all the rest of them, with the exception that it does seem to have a boozy note to it, which is the kind of through note of all the rest of them. But I would say the apple rum cake and the amberwood and vetiver and the whiskey and embers and the velvet fig all seem like they share a lot of elements. They've got a lot of honey in them and a lot of amber, and they often have some sort of like vetiver or leather note in them, and all of them are boozy. So then when you take away that common denominator, you're really only changing a few other things. What is impressive about it is that the notes that they have added to the rest of those 4 really do make a difference. So like the raisin note, for instance, in the rum and raisin candle really makes it significantly different candle than like amberwood and vetiver, for instance, it's amberwood and rosewood and vetiver. The fig element makes it a much different element. That fig is like the biggest part of that candle, just like the raisins are one of the biggest part of the other candle, right? That sweet whiskey note smells significantly different than the rum note, than like the cognac note and some of the other candles, right? So I think that they have done a good job of differentiating some of these conceptuals, given the fact that they share so many notes. But it does kind of seem like they were working on a certain concept, and then they had various different versions of it. And when you already have only 6 candles, and they're all conceptuals, like it just shows up all the more clearly. At least if we had like 5 random gourmands on the side, maybe we wouldn't notice it as much. But these are the only 6 they're giving us. And like I said, if you don't like booze, you're really out of luck. If you don't like conceptuals, you're even more out of luck, right? I don't know. There were some things that they could have done, even keeping it in the conceptual direction. Again, we don't have an aquatic conceptual, which I always think is a good idea. Obviously, they should have done like gourmands, but you know, even if you're gonna keep it, you know, with the conceptuals, really there aren't any smoke elements here. I personally think you don't need smoke in every single fall candle, but I am surprised that it's not in any of them. I think one of them like promised smoke, but really it didn't deliver on smoke. So we don't have that many smoky elements. And although many of them say that there's wood, wood is actually not a dominant note in any of these candles, or at least in an obvious way either. So you could have had a few more conceptuals that were wood forward, or that were smoke forward, or something. You could have done a smoke and a candy, like how they did like the smoke marshmallow fireside or something like that, you know? Even keeping it conceptual, there were some missed opportunities here. So there's that. And I do think that you need at least one or two really predictable fall candles that are just tweaking something you've already got in your catalog. It's a version of pumpkin spice or apple or something like that. Yeah. The other thing here is, and this is very unfortunate. They've done away with their medium vessels. And so you can only get these candles in daylight form, or in wax melt form, or in a large tumbler form, or in a super large format, which is the 4-wick, which is $45. That is it. They've done away with all of their medium sizes, at least for this collection, and they've been kind of threatening it for a while. I personally think that is a huge mistake. And I don't think that I'm alone in that. I think there's a lot of you out there who prefer buying the medium candle for a whole host of reasons. I like mediums so much, frankly, that even if you offered the large tumbler and the medium candle for the same price, i.e., I would be getting the large tumbler, all of those ounces for free, I would still buy the medium candle. I like a medium candle. I think there's less opportunity for soot problems or wick problems. You get through the candle faster, but it's in just enough time. You move on to the next. I don't like getting bored of a candle and then hanging around with half of the candle left. And that often happens with those large tumblers. I don't want to pay for a large tumbler. I don't even care if it's the same price as the medium. If you offered the large candle for less than the medium, I would probably buy it, but I would resent it because I really just want the medium. Yeah? Like I said, I do not think that I'm the only one here who thinks this way. So I think it's a huge mistake for them not to offer medium. Frankly, if they were gonna offer any one and cancel the other format, I think they should hang on to medium and cancel the large format. It's my personal opinion. They must lose money on the medium. It must cost the same amount in glass or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. The profit margin on the large one must just be larger. But I'm telling you, as a consumer, I don't like it. And I am far less likely to purchase one of these candles now that I know I can only get it in a large. I'm not gonna lie to you. The only way that I would buy it is if it was on some massive sale and was being offered at half price off, where I would be getting it for like 15 bucks. It's the only way that I'm gonna buy this in a large candle. And there are many of these that I want to buy in a large format, i.e. a medium format. And I would pay money for a medium format. I'm not gonna pay money for a large format. I'm just not. All right, rant over. But if anybody is watching from Kringle, I really think you need to rethink this. I really, really do. I suspect even if they put the large candles on sale, that much of a sale, it won't happen until like February or something. And by that point, I'm even less inclined to buy that candle, you know? So I'm just gonna put that out there. Some people, it won't bother that they're only offering it in large. They would have bought a large anyway. I'm just not one of those people. So unfortunately, I think that's a huge detraction from this fall lineup. I also, and I'm not gonna belabor it, don't like the 100% soy. And I think that all of these fragrances would probably smell better in paraffin, but I'm not going to beat a dead horse about that. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm going to end with a positive note. What I love about this collection is that I think all of these fragrances are at least decent, if not better than decent. And I love all of them. I really do. I also think that this is a return to what Kringle does well. I have been a huge proponent of their conceptuals, and the last 2 years where I think they've run their candle company almost into the ground, it's because they started putting out an enormous amount of, frankly, very subpar gourmands. And I don't think they do gourmands all that well. I just don't think they do. What Kringle does that many of the other companies don't do as well is conceptuals. They do conceptuals extraordinarily well. If Yankee Candle tried to do these conceptuals, they would be horrendous. Country Candle is much better, at least at this stage in the game, much better than Yankee Candle with the conceptuals. Bath & Body Works can do a good conceptual too. They just choose not to, you know? But Kringle, I mean, it's really like throwing out your birthright for a mess of pottage, if you know the analogy, okay? When they stopped doing their conceptuals and they started doing gourmands. Sorry. There are some people out there who only buy Kringle candle right now and they love gourmands. And so they want Kringle to do all the gourmands so they can buy Kringle candles that are also gourmands. But you're not gonna win anybody over to Kringle because of those gourmands. If you love gourmands, Bath & Body Works candle, Bath & Body Works is much better at gourmands, and they're much more available, and they're a much better price point. Even Homeworks is better at gourmands, and even Homeworks is more available than Kringle candle is, and with a better price point. So I just, not even to mention Goose Creek, the same way. Like, I said this from the beginning, what is Kringle doing? They can't compete with these other companies. They're just not as good. Like, sometimes they're gourmand. They've got a couple standout gourmands, don't get me wrong, like Blueberry Muffin, for instance. And they'll put one up there that honestly could compete with any one of the other iterations from any of the other companies. But just generally speaking, they're not as good as the other candle companies are. That's their wheelhouse. It's not Kringle's wheelhouse. I don't think it ever will be. And you're not gonna be able to woo people away from Goose Creek or Bath & Body Works or Homeworks on the basis of gourmands. You're just not. You may be able to woo them with conceptuals, because the conceptuals that Kringle does are consistently above average. Interesting, intriguing, deep, and rich. I do think the 100% soy formula is really hampering their ability to do this, but they're still doing it, obviously. So I think this is a return to kind of old school Kringle roots here with this collection. These are fragrances that I could totally have seen 3, 4, 5 years ago from Kringle. And if you're an old school Kringle fan, there's a lot to rejoice about here. If you don't like booze, unfortunately, you're out of luck, because that's, all these conceptuals are somewhat boozy. And Kringle could do other conceptuals that are not boozy. These are just very boozy. I also feel like, and maybe this is, I'm sure this is not the case, but I have been complaining for the last couple years that not only are we missing Kringle's fall conceptuals, but I think that like boozy conceptuals are particularly good for the fall, and dark jammy candles are very good for the fall. I think that fig is underutilized. I think that cherry is underutilized. I've been saying these things for quite a bit. And so I feel like they maybe made this collection just for me. Because I've been saying it for 2 years. So maybe they developed it 2 years ago and are like, we'll give something to Sarita. Okay, that's probably not the case. It's super delusional. But I do think like this is definitely all up in my wheelhouse. So I'm trying to be sensitive to some of you guys out there who like don't like booze and this does not speak fall to you. I actually think that most of these candles are very obvious fall candles. I think they fit well within the fall seasonality. I think they're great. They are a little bit redundant of each other, at least in terms of the category. But yeah, I think that they're great fall conceptual candles and I'm loving them. Could they be a little bit more brilliant? Yes. Are they as brilliant as Sanctuary? Absolutely not. Are they as brilliant as Hollowed Ground? Also probably not. But are they above average fall conceptuals? Yes, they are. And is that what Kringle does well? Yes, it is. And am I very pleased that they are turning in this direction, or at least recovering some aspect of it? I am overjoyed in my heart. Yes. And I do recommend these candles. I do think that you can probably pass on whiskey and embers, because you can probably get that from a lot of candle companies that are more available and cheaper, okay? If you like that kind of thing. I would recommend Sweet Whiskey from Bath & Body Works over that one, for instance. I don't think you need Amberwood and Moss either. I was talking to Virgil from South of Sanity the other day, and he made some quip about how Amberwood and Moss to him smells like an amalgamation of every single Kringle candle into one, and they should just call it Kringle. I know what he's talking about. And I have smelled candles like that from Kringle. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but it is definitely not the best of the six, and is many fragrance elements shy of it being a good candle. And at the very least is probably redundant of many other candles that they've done much better. So if you had to pass on two, I would say definitely pass on Whiskey and Embers and Amberwood Moss. By the way, I am gonna burn these up, and you will see them in like my empties piles for the next couple months. So I'll let you know if something changes once they burn. But just on cold sniff, those are a little bit on the lackluster side, although certainly not bad. The four that I think are quite good are the Apple Rum Cake. Just know that it's more of a rum and raisin candle. Velvet Fig, I like a great deal. I love Vancouver Cabin, but it might be a little bit acquired taste. And I liked Rosewood Vetiver as well, although again, it may be a little bit acquired taste. It's a very cloyingly sweet, high honey note with a tobacco base note. But many of their Halloween candles are in that genre. So if you like that from Kringle, you'll probably like this as well. So there you go. I'm relatively happy with it. I really am. And not everybody is, and I completely understand it. I think there are some weaknesses and some vulnerabilities here, but this is definitely the right direction for Kringle. So I think that it's very, very hopeful, very positive, very promising that they may be heading into this direction. So there you have it, my friends. I'll do another little video with the other little things that I purchased as well. Just not to belabor this anymore, because I know this has been super, super, super long. I'll put bookmarks and all that sort of thing. Thanks for joining me, my friends. And thank you to Kringle, because I'm cheered and more likely to watch what they're doing going forward. I do plan to buy a few of the Halloween candles, and I would really, really like for Kringle to reconsider the medium format as well, especially since they've done away with the 3-wick format. Please give us a medium format. It honestly, for me, makes the difference between either buying or not buying. So yeah. Thank you, my friends. I'll catch you in the next one.